All right, so let's talk about it. The Kamala Harris-Donald Trump debate, what happened? And well, the quick version is Kamala Harris dog-walked Donald Trump. She'd hit him really hard on something like abortion, and then she'd bait him with something else, and he would then just quickly take that bait, and he descended into like full-blown crazy Facebook grandpa mode, to the point that Donald Trump was spewing so many lies per minute, the moderators even at times had to fact-check him in real time, which also is something that Trump supporters used as a way to describe it as a 3 versus 1 debate. So also what many others defended, since their platform was being used to host this debate. They don't just help platform wild lies uncontested and turn it into a he said, she said. And in general, the reaction we've seen online are people saying, yes, Kamala Harris won the debate. Now, as far as what that's gonna mean for the polls in the coming 7 to 10 days or in the election, that remains to be seen. And as always there, I'll remind you that the only poll that matters is the one that happens on election day. But let's get into some of the details and the highlights, right? Because it did not take that long for Trump to go off the rails, with it all really seeming to start with a contentious exchange about abortion that became one of the most single significant moments of the night. Or with that kicking off with moderator Lindsey Davis flagging how Trump has flip-flopped on abortion, right? Noting that he's boasted that he's the guy that killed Roe v. Wade and said last year that he was proud to be the most pro-life president in American history. But now he's out there saying his administration would be great for reproductive rights and pointing out how just a few weeks ago, Donald Trump said he would not vote for Florida's 6-week abortion ban because it was too short. But then after backlash from Republicans, he reversed course the next day and said that he supported the ban. With Davis then going on to ask Trump why voters should trust him on abortion when he has changed his position so many times, and we saw this back and forth.
Well, the reason I'm doing that vote is because the plan is, as you know, the vote is, they have abortion in the 9th month. They even have, and you can look at the governor of West Virginia, the previous governor of West Virginia, not the current governor, is doing an excellent job, but the governor before, he said the baby will be born and we will decide what to do with the baby. In other words, we'll execute the baby. And her vice presidential pick, which I think was a horrible pick, by the way, for our country, because he is really out of it. But her vice presidential pick says abortion in the 9th month is absolutely fine. He also says execution after birth. It's execution, no longer abortion, because the baby is born, is okay. And that's not okay with me, hence the vote. But what I did is something for 52 years. They've been trying to get Roe v. Wade into the states. But each individual state is voting. It's the vote of the people now. It's not tied up in the federal government. I did a great service in doing it. It took courage to do it. And the Supreme Court had great courage in doing it. And I give tremendous credit to those 6 justices.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born.
Also, something I need to note, right? In addition to this just being factually wrong, it also appeared that Donald Trump was mixing up West Virginia and Virginia, because who he's actually trying to reference is Ralph Northam, the former governor of Virginia, which is a mix-up some said showed off Trump's cognitive decline, among other things in this debate. But back to Northam, right? He got backlash from conservatives after an interview in 2019 where he discussed loosening restrictions on 3rd-term abortions when there are serious deformities that could make a fetus non-viable. With him then going on to say that when those pregnancies are carried to term, all doctors can do is make the baby comfortable, resuscitate it if the family wants, and then a discussion would ensue between the physicians and the mother. Right, so again, no, Democrats are not trying to legalize post-term abortions. It is illegal to kill babies. But also last night, that wasn't the only notable moment from the topic of abortion, because we also saw Donald Trump claiming that he didn't support a nationwide abortion ban, but then repeatedly refused to answer questions about whether he would veto one.
Would you veto a national abortion ban if it came to your desk?
Well, I won't have to, because again, 2 things. Number one, she said she'll go back to Congress. She'll never get the vote. It's impossible for her to get the vote, especially now with the 50-50, essentially 50-50 in both Senate and the House. She's not going to get the vote. She can't get the vote. She won't even come close to it. So it's just talk. You know what it reminds me of? When they said they're going to get student loans terminated, and it ended up being a total catastrophe.
With Trump then going on to rant about student loans for a bit before Davis asked the question again.
But if I could just get a yes or no, because your running mate, J.D. Vance, has said that you would veto it if it did come to your desk.
Well, I didn't discuss it with J.D. In all fairness, J.D., and I don't mind if he has a certain view, but I think he was speaking for me, but I really didn't. Look, we don't have to discuss it because she'd never be able to get it, just like she couldn't get student loans. They couldn't get student loans. They didn't even come close to getting student loans.
Also, that's where I'm going to cut the clip, because he once again just kept rambling about student loans instead of actually answering the question. But again, this was really just like the prelude, because shit really went off the rails when Harris dropped just a morsel of bait that Trump couldn't refuse, the size of his crowds.
I'm going to actually do something really unusual, and I'm going to invite you to attend one of Donald Trump's rallies, because it's a really interesting thing to watch. You will see during the course of his rallies, he talks about fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter. He will talk about windmills cause cancer. And what you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom. And I will tell you, the one thing you will not hear him talk about is you.
Right, and that is something she just kind of threw in at the end to see if he would grab onto while she was answering a question about immigration, which is exactly what happened.
People don't leave my rallies. We have the biggest rallies, the most incredible rallies in the history of politics. That's because people want to take their country back. Our country is being lost. We're a failing nation. And it happened 3.5 years ago. And what's going on here, you're going to end up in World War III, just to go into another subject. What they have done to our country by allowing these millions and millions of people to come into our country, and look at what's happening to the towns all over the United States. And a lot of towns don't want to talk. It's not going to be Aurora or Springfield. A lot of towns don't want to talk about it because they're so embarrassed by it. In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there.
Which then prompted this back and forth with moderator David Muir.
I just want to clarify here. You bring up Springfield, Ohio, and ABC News did reach out to the city manager there. He told us there have been no credible reports of specific claims of pets being harmed, injured, or abused by individuals within the immigrant community.
Well, I've seen people on television.
Let me just say here, this is
the people on television say my dog was taken and used for food. So maybe he said that, and maybe that's a good thing to say for a city manager.
I'm not taking this from
but
television.
But the people are
I'm
on
taking
television
it from the city
saying
manager.
their dog was eaten by the people that went there.
Again, the Springfield city manager says there's no evidence of that. Vice
We'll
President
find
Harris.
out.
And that was just one of the many times we saw Harris baiting Trump into a disjointed rant, where she also got him to use up precious time rambling on and on about his own convictions when they were talking about crime. And then there was this wild moment where she says the military leaders that she's met with while traveling the world have called Trump a disgrace, which he responds by saying, "Oh yeah, bet. You know who just fucking loves me? Far-right strongman, Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban, who many people describe as an authoritarian leader." With him going on a nearly 2-minute-long rant about how great Orban is and also saying some shit about pipelines in Europe. Another part of the debate that was really notable was just the sheer number of very important questions that Trump refused to answer or dodge, even when the moderators asked multiple times. Like, for example, when the debate moved to the topic of the Israel-Gaza war, and Davis asked him a very straightforward question, and he responded by just first talking about Russia and then basically descending into nonsense.
President Trump, how would you negotiate with Netanyahu and also Hamas in order to get the hostages out and prevent the killing of more innocent civilians in Gaza?
If I were president, it would have never started. If I were president, Russia would have never, ever, I know Putin very well, he would have never, and there was no threat of it either, by the way, for 4 years, have gone into Ukraine and killed millions of people when you add it up, far worse than people understand what's going on over there. But when she mentions about Israel, all of a sudden, she hates Israel. If she's president, I believe that Israel will not exist within 2 years from now. And I've been pretty good at predictions, and I hope I'm wrong about that one. She hates Israel. At the same time, in her own way, she hates the Arab population because the whole place is going to get blown up. Arabs, Jewish people, Israel will be gone. It would have never happened. Iran was broke under Donald Trump. Now Iran has $300 billion because they took off all the sanctions that I had. Iran had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah or any of the 28 different spheres of terror.
But then when he was asked about the Russian invasion of Ukraine and whether he wants Ukraine to win, he also avoided answering.
And I want to ask you a very simple question tonight. Do you want Ukraine to win this war?
I want the war to stop. I want to save lives that are being uselessly, people being killed by the millions. It's the millions. It's so much worse than the numbers that you're getting, which are fake numbers.
Just to clarify in the question, do you believe it's in the U.S. best interests for Ukraine to win this war, yes or no?
I think it's the U.S. best interest to get this war finished and just get it done.
Right, and we should pause there, right, to take just a moment to note how fucking wild it is that Trump is refusing to say that he wants Ukraine to win a war that started because Putin invaded. Also, going back to other big moments, there was one where Muir noted that it took Trump 2 hours before he told his supporters to go home on January 6th, and he asked if Trump regretted any of his actions that day.
You just said a thing that isn't covered. Peacefully and patriotically, I said during my speech, not later on. Peacefully and patriotically. and nobody on the other side was killed.
With him then turning the discussion once again to immigration, which he did numerous times throughout the whole debate when the topic was something entirely different. But here, when Muir asked him the question again, we saw this back and forth.
You were the president. You were watching it unfold on television. It's a very simple question as we move forward toward another election. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day? Yes or no?
I had nothing to do with that other than they asked me to make a speech. I showed up for a speech. I said, I think it's going to be big.
Which one, it's wild that he's trying to minimize his role. Like, I just showed up there, even though beforehand he was tweeting, it's gonna be a wild one. Also, on the note of January 6th and Trump's election lies, another key moment came when Muir asked Trump about several comments that he made in recent weeks where he appeared to acknowledge that he lost the 2020 election.
In the past couple of weeks leading up to this debate, you have said, quote, you lost by a whisker, that you, quote, didn't quite make it, that you came up a little bit short.
I said that?
Are you now acknowledging that you lost in 2020?
No, I don't acknowledge that at all.
But
I
you
said
did
that
say that.
sarcastically.
But
You know
those-
that. It was said, oh, we lost by a whisker. That was said sarcastically. Look, there's so much proof. All you have to do is look at it.
With Trump then once again pivoting to talking about immigration and the border, and then once he finished, Muir responded.
I did watch all of these pieces of video. I didn't detect the sarcasm, lost by a whisker, we didn't quite make it.
And while ABC didn't share those clips last night, I'll show you for yourself so you can decide if Trump was being sarcastic.
I was told if I got 63 million, which is what I got the first time, you would win. You can't not win. And I got millions of more votes than that, and lost by a whisker. He beat us by a whisker, and it was a terrible thing.
I got many millions more votes than I got the first time. It didn't quite make it, just a little bit short.
But then the final highlight that I'll touch on is one of the few times that the moderators sort of kind of basically got Trump to actually answer a follow-up question, with the result being this absolutely unforgettable soundbite that's already being memed at warp speed and will go down in history with other top-notch Trumpisms like Fefe and Tim Apple. And specifically, we saw Davis pointing out that Trump has long promised to repeal and replace Obamacare, but failed to do so during his presidency, right? And noting that Donald Trump said last month that he was working on a better plan to replace the ACA, and asking,
So tonight, 9 years after you first started running, do you have a plan, and can you tell us what it is?
Now, at first, Trump doesn't answer the question. Instead, he's just ranting about how much Obamacare sucks. And so Davis tries again, and we get this.
So just a yes or no, you still do not have a plan.
I have concepts of a plan.
I love it so much. It's like when my wife's like, so what are we doing for dinner tonight? I'm like, I completely remembered I said I was gonna do that. And we have options. We have a concept of a plan. But of course, all that said, right, these are just a few key highlights from the debate. I'm not able to hit on every single one right now, which is also why I'm gonna link below to the full debate in case you missed it. Though a lot of people did watch the debate last night, with the early Nielsen ratings saying the debate brought in 57.75 million viewers across the big four broadcast networks, CNN, Fox News, Fox Business, and MSNBC, which reports note is 6.5 million more people in the final tally for the debate between Biden and Trump. And even that number included 9 more networks and out-of-home viewing, which aren't factored into the current numbers. But yeah, that actually is going to bring us to the end of this story, because I'd really love to know what your thoughts with the debate were, especially if you watched the whole thing or a chunk of it.